Welcome back to Sprague Homestead on another Mailbag Monday. So the first question I have this week, somebody asked, what is the best treatment for mites on a pregnant rabbit doe? So the answer to this kind of depends on what kind of mites we're talking about. If it's fur mites, you can use Safeguard, which is an oral safeguard that you use for goats. It is listed as being safe for pregnant animals. It is not as effective on fur mites as Ivomec, but Ivomec is not listed as being safe for pregnant animals. If you're talking about ear mites, just mineral oil. You can also use olive oil, baby oil, any kind of thing to smother the mites. You do have to do it every couple of days. It's not like a one and done kind of thing. But that's probably going to be the safest course for a pregnant doe and will minimize your risk of miscarriage. Another question we had this week is, do you have rattlesnakes in your area? There's kind of a long and short answer to this. Yes, we have them in Klamath County. We know people out in Bonanza. We know people along the river that have seen them. We know people up in Tableland that's seen them. We have never seen one here on the farm. Now, we kind of live in the middle of national forest. So my guess is they don't really like a lot of livestock movement and equipment and all that. So my guess is that they're probably here, but they're just not on this property per se. We do see an ever increasing number of things like racers and that sort of thing, because especially in our gardens, we've increased our biodiversity. So we've got more frogs and that kind of thing than we used to. So we're getting more racers, but I have never seen a rattlesnake here. So the next question was about a gal that was getting ready to breed her goats. So she doesn't own a buck. She was getting ready to take her two does off to service to another farm, and she said, well, one of them had a full round of CDT, which is, one shot, and then a secondary booster in 4 to 6 weeks. The other doe only had one shot. So she was asking, how do I catch her up to make sure that she's covered before she leaves the farm and to meet I'm assuming to meet the breeding criteria of the person breeding for her. So CDT is not one of those things that you can just come back in and boost her at any time. They've said specifically when you get started with it, you've got to do the one shot followed by a secondary shot at 4 to 6 weeks, depending on the manufacturer, to be covered for the next year. This isn't negotiable. So if you miss the second shot, you do have to start over, unfortunately. So to catch your doe up, you're going to need about a month. So you need to do your first shot and then get your second one followed up as quickly as you can, and then she'll be covered and ready to go. While you're doing that, don't forget to go ahead and do a dewormer before you send them off to another farm, or you can go ahead and do a dewormer when they get back. But make sure that you're covered for everything, because you just don't always know the biosecurity on another farm. You can't kind of manage that. Definitely go look at it first, get a good feel for it. Look at any testing records that the buck has had. But past that, try and minimize the risk to your own animals before you send them. All right, so the next question was kind of multiple questions in one, and is one that I see a lot in a lot of different groups. And that is, are paste wormers safe for things like rabbits, chickens, dogs, cats? And and what is the dosage? I'm trying to read my notes at the same time. Okay, so paste wormers are not made for small animals. Paste wormers, and they're talking specifically about the big, like Ivomec, Farnham Labs, and a couple others, make an Ivomec in a tube or an ivermectin in a tube, and that's what they're asking about is, can I worm with that? There are a lot of rabbit breeders that will use it. It is not, however, safe. And I did contact 2 different companies a couple years ago to confirm this, and they said, no, absolutely, it is not made for small animals. So the way that the medication is mixed through the paste, they don't guarantee consistency all the way through. Remember that it's supposed to be given by the tube. It's marked for like 1,000-pound animals. What they told me is it wasn't even safe. Safeguard actually told me it wasn't safe for goats, so that I should use the the oral suspension liquid, because they said with the paste, it's the same thing. They sell it based on the idea that you're going to use, even in a smaller horse, 600 or 800 pounds. So a good portion of that too. That's what they count on. So if you're using a pea-sized amount, which is what a lot of rabbit people will tell you, oh, just use a pea-sized amount, you can have one of two things. You could be completely overdosing that animal, or you could be completely underdosing them and have no usage with it at all. So beyond the way that they mix it in, they also told me that depending on how it's transported and stored, it can actually, the medication will start to separate out through the paste. This is why what they told me is when you get one, you should pull back the plunger a little bit, put your finger over the end and kind of go back and forth and actually try and remix it. I didn't know that, but that is what they told me because of separation. So is it safe? No. The other thing that goes past this is when you're talking about dog breeds, there are some dog breeds that Ivermectin is actually really dangerous for, specifically collies. And I don't remember the name of the gene that causes it, but there is an increasing amount of people who are reporting death in border collies that get into the droppings of animals that have been treated with Ivermectin. Because, unfortunately dogs sometimes like to eat poop. So when they get into some of this that's been treated with the Ivermectin, it can actually be fatal. If you've got a collie type breed, I would definitely look into it. I want to say it starts with an M, but again, I'm not familiar with it a whole lot. We don't use Ivermectin here for anything that my dog can get into, because I, of course, have a rough coat Scottish collie, and they can have the same sensitivity issues. So I don't recommend Ivermectin. For me, if you're going to use any kind of wormer, do it species specific. Sorry, tongue-tied this morning. Go species specific. Like for our chickens, we prefer to use Wazine, which is water soluble. I occasionally will use Ivermectin in the rabbits if it's something that, like fur mites, ear mites, that kind of thing. But we don't just broad spectrum worm anything. We use Safeguard in our goats. We use different stuff in the dogs depending on what their function is around here and what I'm trying to protect them from. And we use cat-specific stuff for the cats. So I know it's more expensive that way, but you're 10 times better off if you're making sure that you're actually getting the stuff that you're trying to make sure that you've killed. So species-specific is my recommendation, and stay away from the paste warmers unless you're treating a horse or something 600-800 pounds. All right, so my last one was my buck goat is bullying my does. What can I do about it? So in asking some more questions about it, what I actually found out is rather than build a separate pasture for the buck, they've been running the buck with the does all year. Bucks are the head of the herd, so yes, they do tend to bully a little bit more. My suggestion to this person was he needs to be separated. Turns out he actually came with a wether companion, so the wether and the buck have been living with her does, and she's going to go ahead and move them, and that should cut down a lot of the bullying. Now, part of that is it's, of course, going to be worse this time of year because it's breeding season. Breeding season kind of kicked off, at least the rut for us got started mid to late August, and by now the boys are pretty freaking fragrant. So, yeah, they get a little bit more aggressive and bossy during the rut. It's just kind of the way it is. All right, so I had a couple other little side note questions. Those were kind of our big Mailbag Monday questions. Somebody had sent me an email this morning and asked if it was too late to sign up for rabbit class this coming weekend. No, I still have room. So initially we were shooting for 12 people. We had 12 people. When we rescheduled, we now have 5 attendees. So I have room if you want to come. Now keep in mind, this coming weekend is going to be rainy. We're looking at highs in the 50s, which kind of sucks. Kanan's going to be gracious and move his cars out of the garage, so we will be indoors in a great big shop space. So social distancing won't be a big deal. But we are going to probably have to move inside rather than be truly outside because of the weather. We'll do what we can outside, but some of it, unless we all want to stand around and get wet, is going to have to be inside. So if you still want to come, I need to know no later than Wednesday evening. I'm having some packets made for people to take home with notes and information in it. So I need to know, like, stat. If you want to come, you need to kick me an email to srhomestead@yahoo.com, or you can send me a message through Instagram, Facebook, whatever. But you need to get in touch with me right away. Otherwise, you're going to get left off the list. Wednesday night, I'm also going to go ahead and send out directions because we are down a road that's not mappable, and some other information about what you probably should bring, and kind of talk about our menu for Saturday's luncheon. So get right on that. The other thing is we are looking at Patreon, but in the immediate, we've had people ask how can they help and support us. We do not do a tip jar. We aren't going to do a tip jar. But if you really want to help, Christmas is coming, and we have some of our official logo gear that is available through Teespring. Usually on our videos, if you go down, there is what's called a merchandise shelf. You'll kind of see some stuff scroll through. We make a commission off of it. It's our designs. We've got a couple of logo shirts. I've got a new shirt and a sweatshirt available that's got Coturnix quail on it. Got some stuff coming up. So that's probably the best way. If you want to show your support, go through and buy a t-shirt. So that is it for today from Sprague Homestead on your Mailbag Monday. If you have questions, leave them down in the comments. I have a ton of videos that I am working on right now for people that have requested stuff. I know people have asked about fly strike, bots, food aggression, all kinds of stuff. So I have lots coming up. Just bear with me a little bit. I'm trying to work around getting everything finished up for class and get the farm ready for fall and winter. So lots going on around here. But that is it for today. We will see you next time. Happy homesteading.